Many people aspire to be an entrepreneur, but not everybody can make it. What is the secret to starting a successful business? In this public lecture hosted by the Open University of Hong Kong, Derek Kwik, managing partner of BraveSoldier Venture Capital, speaks about the qualities needed to launch a successful startup. From his many years of experience supporting newly formed businesses, he gives advice on how to prosper as an entrepreneur instead of staying on the sidelines as a wantrepreneur.
So I wanted to talk to you about entrepreneur or wantrepreneur. I guess a lot of you know what entrepreneur is, but do you guys know what wantrepreneur means, right? Because these days you've seen in the technology space, a lot of people want to do startups, right? Because it's really exciting. They don't want to work at a corporate level. They want to have their own business. And then there's those people who always talk about it, but don't have the action to go with it, right? So there's entrepreneurs I think are people that are very, very much focused on having that action plan to get their idea going, to get their business going. And then you have wantrepreneurs who just talk about an idea and they hope things will happen, but they don't have that action plan. So another way to describe it is there's a fundamental difference between astronomers and astronauts. Which one are you? So each of you individually have to ask yourselves, do you want to go to the moon and visit the planets and see the stars? Or do you want to sit here on planet Earth and look through a telescope and enjoy it that way, right? I think there's more about leading by example and being that astronaut rather than being the astronomer. So my background is, I've worked in banking, management consulting. Now what I do today is venture capital. Since 1999, I'm one of the few people that are still in this internet investment business. So back in year 2000, I've had over 15,000 opportunities to read business plans, listen to presentations, and it might sound like a big number from 2000 to 2015, but if you read 20 business plans every week for 15 years, you can achieve that number as well. So I had to choose between, do I want that corporate life of getting that foundation layer, getting that experience of working in a big company, or do I want to go out and start my own business? And I think the same thing is when we invest in early stage companies, people that start up their own businesses, we're looking at really working with these founders or the entrepreneurs who had these really cool ideas. And a lot of them would start off first in the corporate world and then make that transition after they get enough experience in working in their own startups. Some people say that, in entrepreneur life, what you see in the media and on TV is, oh, it's great, and there's so many billionaires, and you hear about the Facebooks and the LinkedIn and the Twitters and Alibaba, and all these companies are great companies, but you have to remember that back when they first started, it was just an idea on a piece of paper. And nobody knew who Jack Ma was, nobody who knew Mark Zuckerberg was, nobody knew the company Alibaba. Nobody knew any of these names until today, where you see it in the media, and now these are very famous, very successful companies. But starting from where they started, working at home or working from a small office and not having a lot of money to get your business going, it's a really, really tough life, right? So if you want to be an entrepreneur, don't think about all of the successes. That will come if you do a good job. What happens is you need to put all the work, and being an entrepreneur is just all of these ups and downs. Every day is always a different kind of challenge. The entrepreneur is like that, right? At night, people go to sleep and they're still up all night working nonstop. For me, it's very similar. I work in 2 time zones. So I work in my Hong Kong time zone, and then in the evening, when everybody goes to sleep, then the US wakes up, and then I'm on calls with the US. I'm talking to people in the US. I only sleep like 3 to 4 hours every night. It's really, really tough. But I really enjoy having that kind of energy. And on the weekends, I really need to sleep in and relax and catch up with myself. And then on Monday to Friday, I start again. And I've been doing this for a long time now, but I can't find a way to work anywhere less than that. So when you're doing a startup, you have sort of the hard skills which are the academics, which I think is more of the tangible things that you learn in the classroom. But what I think is most importantly about being an entrepreneur is the intangible, about having that passion. Every day you wake up every morning with a purpose, like, okay, today my plan is this, and you have this excitement of wanting to do something. Think about all the things that you like to do, right? No one has to tell you to do it because you will naturally go out and do that yourself, right? Because that's your passion, that's your personal interest. But I find like when you wake up for, let's say for work, if you're working in a company, for me, I find that, oh, I'm working for somebody else and I'm helping them achieve their dream, but what about my personal dream? What do I want to become? What do I want to do? How is the company that I'm working for going to help me to be a better person, to learn and achieve whatever other goals I have set forth for myself? So you always have to ask yourself that question. Is the company that you're working for, are they helping you get there? And if they're not, then is there another company that can? Or should I start my own business so I can achieve that on my own? So in 2004, I set up my own company. I wanted a very unique name, so I called it BraveSoldier Ventures, and I wanted it to be a company that invested in founders, that invested in entrepreneurs, people with really cool business ideas where we could have a role in not just investing in the company, but also helping them to achieve their goals by being operating partners. So not just putting money in, but we would actually roll up our sleeves, sit alongside the founders and entrepreneurs and say, how can we help you? Oh, well, we need to go hire somebody. We need to find a CTO. Okay, well, let me go and try to look through my Rolodex and try to find some contacts that could help you with that. Oh, we need an introduction to customers. Okay, let me help you with that. Oh, we need to go to a factory in Shenzhen. Okay, let me help you with that. So it was much more hands-on in terms of taking an operational role. So my investment theme, everybody has an investment theme when they go out and invest. Everybody has a different type of investment focus. Mine happens to be enhancing the lifestyle experience. What do I mean by that? 40 years ago, I think this was before a lot of you were around, products back then were sold based on functionality. What I mean by that is when you had a laptop computer, the laptop computer was sold based on its functionality. So it had a sticker on it that said Intel inside. So it was talking about the performance of that product. How are laptops today sold? Go to the Apple Store, pick out a product you like, play around with it, and you pick out a color you like, customize it, walk out with it, and that's your consumer experience. That is very important. How is coffee sold today? Well, back then, coffee was sold as wake up in the morning, get your caffeine fix, and that powers you through the day. Coffee today is sold as go to Starbucks, order coffee exactly the way you want. A barista will handcraft it, $40 please, right? So people are willing to pay for that experience. So in 2005 to 2008, we invested in a robotics company. They make this really cool robotic dinosaur. 2005, 2009, we invested in a company that does mobile payments. What's next? I think IoT is really big. You might have heard that term, Internet of Things. So it's basically all these different consumer electronic devices communicating with each other. I think vape technology is the next big thing. I'll talk about more of that in a minute. And the reason, the thing that's interesting is that we're in a sharing economy. So all the things that you do today with your smartphone, whether it's Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, all of those different types of things, you want to share your experience with each other, right? The more we share, the more we have, right? It's about enriching each other's lives. It's about engaging each other. So in the work that I do for investors, it's all about show me the money. So if we invest in a company, of course, we want to see what is the commercial return that we can get on our investment. So there's different ways when you're starting your company. You can bootstrap it, which means basically you take your own money from your own savings and you use that to fund your company. Or you do fundraising where you talk to your friends and family, maybe some bigger investors to fund your idea. And fundraising is a skill. When you learn about fundraising, let's say in one of your classes, what they'll teach you is sort of the academics of like, how do you write a business plan? How do you create a revenue model? And I think that's great. Those are the foundations. That's the academics of it. But the real skill in selling are the soft skills. It's how you tell a story. It's not about just reading a presentation on the board because that's not interesting. It's not about writing a report and giving it to someone. That's not interesting. It's how do you tell the story in your own words. That's the most important thing. And how you do that is you need to be relevant in the audience that you're talking to. So you need to understand your audience. Who is your audience? Not every story is going to match every audience. So before you give your presentation, make sure that you understand who are the people that are sitting there so that you can engage them more closely. And then this one about mobile payments. It's about taking that SIM card and putting that into your phone, and you're able to do mobile payments. Back in 2005, nobody was talking about mobile payments. But we saw this as an opportunity. We looked at the future of where everybody was having mobile devices and having smartphones, and we thought this was going to be the future. So we invested in mobile payments. And what's interesting is that today, I don't think that mobile payments is a big deal. People expect it to be on your phone. What I think is an even bigger opportunity is coupons, loyalty programs, advertisements, electronic door access with your phone, and identification cards. Mobile payments is just another vertical of those other applications. So mobile payments, next killer app, maybe not, but everybody's talking about Apple Pay today. But I think mobile payments is 2005 technology because that's when we were first interested in it, and now everybody's talking about it. But I think when you're doing venture capital, you need to think about what is today's idea going to be 10 years from now, and that's where you have to see it. You can invest in the technology too late, and that might not be good. So you always have to think about where is it going to be. So again, investors want to know, show me the money. How do you commercialize on these interesting ideas? Well, investors always want to see this hockey stick forecast, right? Nobody wants to get into a company when it's here. They want to get in right when it's about to take off. And as I mentioned before, fundraising is not just about money. So it's also about the management team. It's about the technology. It can be about how an agreement is written, some type of contract that you have written that gives you this advantage over your competitors. There's many other things to consider. And in this example, we invested in a company that just had this idea on a piece of paper. It's just a drawing. And that drawing there is the drawing of an electronic cigarette. Okay, it's a very new technology. Some of you may have heard about it. And this technology was invented in China in 2008. We've gone through 8 years. The past 8 years has all been trial and error. It's just been experimentation by factories in China, because this technology was invented in China, or by entrepreneurs or founders who had an idea about electronic cigarettes. And this is what we had. A company from Los Angeles was looking for funding for this drawing. And we had to help them take this drawing and create CAD files that we can take to the factory in China and get prototypes made. And every day, for me, it was like getting on video conference calls at night and having these conference calls with the founders who were in Los Angeles and just talking about this idea and trying to come up with an action plan on how to execute it. So now let's come up with a pitch strategy. We need to go find investors to help us grow our business. How do we do that? And of course, as I mentioned before, you have sort of the academics of, you have a business plan. You know, what is your idea? How are you going to launch it? What is your revenue model? What is the market opportunity? And all of those basic things that you can just research on the internet and put that together in a document and give that to investors. But that's academic, so I don't want to talk about that. But let's talk about how do you tell a story. The story, again, I go back to this again because this is so important whenever you're doing anything in life, whether you're in your personal life or at work, whatever you're trying to do, you're always pitching, you're always trying to convince somebody else of your argument, of your idea, of your opinion. So one of the ways that the company got me so interested was they said to me, when was the last time you had an invitation, not an opportunity, but an invitation to invest in an industry this big, this early on? Well, for me, that was the internet, right? And I missed out a lot of those opportunities. So I told myself, well, okay, now you have my attention. What is this idea that you have that's this interesting or this big that I could potentially miss out on if I did not invest? So this was the way the opportunity was presented to me, and it was very interesting. It had my curiosity. Okay, I really want to know what is this idea? So we talked about the electronic cigarette, and in 2014, Goldman Sachs put out a research report about the top 10 most disruptive technologies. Of course, in the top 10, the ones that everybody in the room here could brainstorm is you had 3D printing, you had drones, but number one was electronic cigarettes. And then I reference checked that. I looked up Citibank and JP Morgan and Morgan Stanley, and they all had electronic cigarettes listed in the top 10. All the cigarettes sold in this world, nicotine patches that you put on, the nicotine gum that you chew, all of that is 800 billion US dollars. No matter how many times you chop up that pie, 800 billion is a massive number. So when you talk about disruption in technology, I don't think that there's anything more disruptive in technology than electronic cigarettes. It is truly huge. And again, we're talking about an interesting idea where they're taking a business model that works across all different industries, like the razor blade business model, which is the same as the printer cartridge model. When you buy a printer, you have to buy just that specific cartridge, or the Nespresso coffee capsule business model. So this type of business model works across different industries. Why wouldn't it work for electronic cigarettes? So the other thing too is when you're telling a story, is you want to create that sense of urgency, that for an investor, if you don't get in now, you're going to miss this opportunity, and you'll never get another opportunity like this. So take what I say as this is the opportunity, right? Apple is really good at this. New iPhone comes out, everybody lines up to go get one. So one thing that Steve Jobs does really well is he said that consumers don't know what they want. You have to educate consumers. You have to tell them they need an iPhone. People go out and buy it. What happens 18 months later is when the next iPhone comes out, Steve Jobs says, you need the next one. Well, what's wrong with your current one? Well, nothing, but the next one runs faster. Okay, I'll go get that one. So it's just about educating the consumer why creating that demand, creating that urgency is like, hurry up and get one, because if you don't, it's going to be sold out. And then along the way is when you tell a story, everybody wants to be part of the journey. They want to be part of the process, right? They don't want to just the end goal. But when we were talking about this idea and we're talking to investors, we want to show them the path on how we got there. So it's about saying, okay, we're at the factory, we're getting prototypes done. It's not pretty, it looks kind of ugly. We have tape holding everything together, there's wires sticking out, but you can picture what this is going to look like when we're commercial. So it's about showing this idea and showing them the progress. And then it's about going to the factories in Shenzhen and showing them the meetings that we have with the factory and how the progress is going, the different types of iterations that we're doing from one product to the next, and the small improvements that we make along the way. And then in January 2016, we had the product, and it was so cool to see it from just a hand drawing to an actual product, something that's tangible that you can see, you can touch it, you can hold it, and that really makes a big difference, right? That sense of accomplishment is massive, because you think about all the hours, all of the day trips that you make into Shenzhen, sitting on that bus and going all the way out to the factory, and then spending the whole day there, and then coming all the way back to Hong Kong, doing that every week. That takes a long time, and then just to finally see that, or to be in the factory and to see that is really amazing, right? So when you're raising money and you're talking about this opportunity, you want to talk to a lot of people about it and create this demand that everybody wants to be part of this opportunity. And then it's about, okay, now we have the product, let's talk about the e-commerce platform, how are we going to sell it, what are the distribution channels, and then it's about showing the website development and how we're actually setting up the website. And then, of course, as I mentioned before, we're in a sharing economy. So it's everything you do today when it comes to a product or service that you want to do, it's all about social media validation. It's so important to get your product out to your consumers or to people that we call key opinion leaders or KOLs. These guys are really important because they have huge social media followings. The guy on the right-hand side, he has over 300,000 YouTube followers on his channel. So when you give him a product and you tell him to review it, if he says it's good, it's fantastic. Everybody will want to buy your product, or they'll be more interested in your product. But if he says your product's bad, it's a double-edged sword. It's going to kill you. People are more inclined to believe social media than they would be to see an advertisement, right? So the social media, when it's out there, it's really just a very unbiased approach to it, and I think that's very powerful. Your own investors make the best salesmen, so once you get someone to buy into your idea, have them go out and talk to their friends, and they can talk to their friends, and they can talk to their friends. Because what that does is you kind of create this network effect. Oh, this is a great company. You got to get on in this beat. Why? Because I got into it, right? You bring in that validation. That's really important. Now comes distribution. We want to get this product out to everybody, not just this small market, but everybody. So we targeted convenience stores. The number of convenience stores in the United States, the total number is 180,000. We are partnered with a distributor that distributes to 160,000. So in the US, we only have one customer, just one, right? But they buy all this product, and then they rain product down on 7-Elevens, the Circle K's, the Walmarts, the Walgreens, all of these different convenience stores, gas station chains, pharmacies, everybody. So that's the power of distribution. You have to pick the right partner. So we decided we want to go for the biggest customer, just sell to them, and then I don't want to have the headache of dealing with other customers. I just want to sell to the guy that sells to 7-Eleven. That's all I want. So it's about finding the biggest customer. Because when you're making a consumer product, you're only as successful as the number of distribution points. That's very important. We did a national press release. We sent out to 217 news agencies, and we got the data analytics back to announce that we have this product and we're selling it in the US. And the data analytics came back and said Yahoo was the biggest where people received the message, they clicked on it, and 76 million views, just the news that we launched this product. And then the following week, NACS stands for National Association of Convenience Stores. And at this exhibition, at this show, it's a huge show in the US. Anything that you can buy in a convenience store was in this one building. So out of 330 products, we were in the top 10. So that shows that this type of technology, this type of product is very interesting to buyers. So the 7-Elevens and the Circle K's and the Walmarts and all these big companies were coming in to this expo, and they're just picking what kind of products they want to put in their stores for next year. First order, $7 million US order. That's 200,000 devices and 1 million cartridges. And that's our first order. And I think for them, they've really done a good job in how they told the story and the progress and the journey from where we were with just a drawing on a piece of paper to where we are today. So you guys have probably heard about crowdfunding, where a lot of people have these ideas and they go on to Indiegogo or Kickstarter. And I have a different opinion about that. It's great to have these ideas, and then you create this cool video and you show it to people, and people can go online and watch it, and then they basically donate or they fund your company. So you get $10 here, $100 here, $50 there. And when you add it all together, it could potentially be a very successful crowdfunding campaign. But if you think about it, what does crowdfunding really say about your idea, your startup? I think it's a false positive. If you have a very successful campaign, that's great, but who's funding this campaign? They're not your real customers. They're people that support the technology community, the people that like to go and support new ideas, but they're not your real customers, right? So what does crowdfunding say about, it's a false positive, is that you might think that, oh, I had a very successful crowdfunding campaign, therefore, when I make my product and I sell it, it's going to be very successful. I think it's quite the contrary, where the crowdfunding campaign it's really made up of people that support the community, but they're not necessarily someone that would buy your product. So you really have to understand who your customers, and you need to sell to them, not sell it on in a crowdfunding campaign. So what does crowdfunding say about you is it says everything that you shouldn't be as a business to your customer. It says, I don't have a reputation, I'm unproven, I don't have a fully commercial product yet, I'm just starting out, we probably don't have everybody that we need in the company to keep this going. So it's all of these unknowns. And as a customer, I don't want that. I want the appearance that a company is mature, that they have a product, and that they know what they're doing. So I think crowdfunding sends a very different message to your customers. So an entrepreneur is having an idea, and within a very short period of time, they have a business going. Whereas a wantrepreneur has an idea at the same time, but a month later, they're still talking about their idea. They have intentions of doing it, but they don't have an action plan on how to get there. So what I tell people is, like, don't focus on being a startup. Focus on being a business. Why do I have this picture up here is that people that want to start up a business, like these tech guys, and they have these cool ideas, is they are by very definition a founder or entrepreneur, right? But the guy across the street, the guy selling wonton noodles, that guy by definition is also an entrepreneur. He's also a founder. You know what the difference between the two is that the guy across the street selling wonton noodles, he's a hustler, right? He knows every day he needs to sell 50 bowls of noodles for lunch and 50 bowls of noodles for dinner. And he cannot go home until he does that. And that's how founders, entrepreneurs, that's how they need to think, is every day it's about the hustle. Every day you wake up, you need to have that passion or that checklist of things to do to get through your day. After you pitch, of course, you have to follow up. Trust is everything because you're trusting in people. You have to be transparent. Good news, bad news, I want to know about it. And you have to always communicate. So one thing I really like to do is I like to be on WhatsApp or WeChat or online. And when I'm at the factory, I'll take a picture of the production line and I'll send it to investors. Don't have to write a formal report. Just send them a picture. It's like, look at this. You know, it's being made, or we're working on the next design. And you know, this is about the journey. It's about communicating the journey of today, of tomorrow, of next week to your audience. And that's what people want to be part of. That's what creates the excitement. So if you find fundraising hard, then you need to practice at being a better storyteller. Anything you do in life, you have to be a salesman. You have to always convince somebody of your argument. You have to convince somebody of something, right? So you should always be practicing your negotiation skills, how you create an argument, how do you rebut everything that you talk about. It's probably the most important skill you will need when you finish school, is how to convince somebody to do something. It is so important. Do you know your ABCs? Always be closing. That's so important. Sorry, my dog ate my homework, right? That's a start. Now, how do you convince me that your dog ate my homework? Well, I bring the paper and I show you, this is my dog, he chewed up my homework. This is a picture of my dog. You're trying to create the argument that this really happened. So always be closing. ABC is not about raising money. It's not just about raising money, but everybody in your company needs to be pitching the brand name, their domain expertise, talking about the company, so that when you do need to go out and raise money, you don't have to start from the beginning, because people are already knowledgeable about who you are, they're educated about what you do, and you can get on with your business right away. That's really important to do, is that you always have to maintain these touch points with people in the business community. A business plan almost never survives the first encounter with reality. So you have your business plan, and it states your timeline of what you're going to do, how long it's going to take to do it, and when you're going to be profitable, and it has all of these different metrics in there. But the famous boxer, Mike Tyson, once said, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. And there's nothing truer than that, because it's like no matter how good your plan is, no matter how many scenarios you've thought it out, there's always something going to go wrong, right? But the founder, the entrepreneur, the reason why they're successful is because they don't quit, right? No matter one problem comes along, they figure out how to fix it, and they keep moving forward. Other people, when the problem comes along, like, okay, it's too much work, I don't want to do it anymore, and they give up, right? So you always have to be able to be flexible and continue to move forward. Funding is actually easy, because all you're doing is you're putting money into a company. But how do you create the success? That's the challenge. Funding is the easy part. Alibaba. I once met a guy named Jack Ma. This was a long time ago. He only had 25 people in the company. This was back in year 2000. And he came to me with his business plan, his idea, school teacher. I don't know, something about him that I really liked. I thought he had this execution capability, that he could really pull this off. I took this opportunity to the partners in the firm, and I wanted to champion this deal and say, look, this is the company. I've done all the due diligence. I really like this company, Alibaba. Can we invest in the company? And this was in year 2000. So to set the scenario is back in 2000, everything was blowing up. All of these dot-com companies were not doing well. And the partners in the firm, who were my bosses at the time, they said, well, how do we know this is the right company? Everything is not doing well. We were managing money for the Hong Kong government. Maybe we should be a little more conservative and just not touch anything right now. So we passed on this opportunity. And I always believe that our lives are defined by opportunities, even the ones that we miss. So be interesting. People want to hear stories, not lectures. All of us in the room, all of you guys are young. You're like a sponge, and you're absorbing all this education, all this information. So you yourselves, each of you individually, you are your own startup, right? And for me, I went to school in Hong Kong. I was born here. I went to high school here. And for me, I like sports. So I do hiking. I run marathons. I go rock climbing. I like to climb mountains and scuba diving. And I like Thai boxing. So I tried different types of sports throughout my time growing up. I jump out of airplanes. I always like these different challenges. And my latest thing is I like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So it's like my new challenge to myself is I'm always trying to find new ways to try the different things that I'm doing. But I always found sports to be my pillar of confidence. And everyone thinks about changing the world. Everybody talks a big game, but when you think about it starts with you. So you have to be able to change yourself in order to change the world. So for me, this is the other side of my life outside of business. I run these ultra marathons. So a standard marathon is 42 kilometers. And an ultra marathon is anything over 50 kilometers. And I'm the first Chinese person in the world to run across the highest, driest, hottest, and coldest deserts. And all these blue dots you see here are all the places that I've run an ultramarathoning. Well, what you have to think about is not just the running, but every weekend, the training that's involved in order to do this, right? You have to train every weekend. Maybe on Friday nights you go out with your friends because you had a long week at work, but you have to go home early so you can get up early on Saturday morning to go do some training. Or maybe during the weekday after work you're really tired, but you still have to go to the gym. And even if it's just 30 minutes to run on the treadmill, you still have to do that, right? It's about that commitment to what you want to do. And a lot of people think that people don't understand, it's like, why would you even run across a desert? I mean, what is the point of that? What is the purpose of that? It sounds hard already. Why would anybody want to do this and do it 16 times? What is the point of that? It all started for me, because I always wanted to try different things, was I did the Trail Walker. And in 1997, DNF means did not finish. Those 3 letters is the worst thing anybody can have in a race. It doesn't matter if it's the marathon or a trail walker, you do not want to have those 3 letters after your name because it's really bad. It means did not finish, right? So when I did the trail walker, we were with my teammates, and it's 10 checkpoints. But when we got to checkpoint 2 at CP2, the 4 of us began to question the amount of work that's involved. 100 kilometers, that's a lot of mileage to do. And we've only gotten to checkpoint 2. We still have another 8 checkpoints to go. It's nighttime. I'm tired. He's tired. We're all tired. Our feet hurt. We began to question, why are we here? And then we thought, well, wait a minute. We could be at home right now, sleeping in a warm bed, air conditioning, hot shower, real food. Why are we doing this? So we quit. And then we went home. And then the next morning, I think it was like Sunday morning, woke up and was like, oh, actually, this isn't bad. I feel fine. But I was tired. I didn't want to do it. Okay, so I go on with my weekend. And then Monday morning at work, people start coming to your office like, oh, so how'd you do? Because people mean well for you, right? And then you're like, well, I didn't finish. And then someone says, oh, did you get hurt? And no, just tired, just didn't want to do it. It's like, okay, well, maybe next year. And then the next person comes, and then the next person. And then the phone rings. You pick up the phone, it's your friends, your family, your parents, and they're all like, how did you do? And then you have to tell the same story over and over again, right? And then you begin to feel like you did something wrong, right? What is the natural reaction for someone after that? is they feel regret, right? What happens after regret? They want redemption. Unfortunately, redemption comes the next year. So I had to wait a whole year to redeem myself, to show everybody that I wasn't injured, that I could do this. So I trained really hard, and then the next year, same place, I sprained my ankle, right? So I sprained my ankle, and I'm limping, and I'm like, oh my gosh, Monday's gonna come along, and I know what this is gonna be, and everybody's gonna talk to me, and like this time I was like, yeah, I injured myself, but then I have to wait a whole year to do this again. So no, I'm gonna keep going. I have to finish this because I'm not going through next year by telling everybody that I didn't do this. So I went 80 kilometers, and I finished it in 37 hours. And it was really, really painful. But on Monday morning, I got to tell everybody that I finished. And that accomplishment was so rewarding. So it's all about that persistence, that you have to do whatever it takes to finish your goal. And quitting is the easiest thing that anybody can do. You don't need any skills to quit. It's very easy to do that. And that's the thing that you don't want to do. So quitting begins as soon as the realization sets in that there's a lot of work in front of you, but you have to be able to understand that, you know, the verbal commitment that you set out, it creates an escalation of expectations. So when you're talking about stories, you always want to start with the person closest to you, and you want to share that. And what makes it interesting is that I like to do these different types of talks and share my stories with different people, and I find that exciting. I've done a TEDx talk, which is, you know, continuing the sharing experience. Why? Because we're in a sharing economy. And I wrote 2 books. I wrote one book about running because I wanted to tell my stories, not to tell you guys that you should also go and run, but just that if you say you're going to do something, you need to follow through with an action plan. And then after that, I wrote a children's book. And back in those days when I was growing up here, I didn't have the internet. We didn't have cable TV. So if we wanted to learn about real life experiences, like going out into the outdoors, I actually had to physically go out and learn about the outdoors that way. And when you do it that way in the real life experience, you have the 5 senses that you can absorb all this information. But I think today we're a bit spoiled where we don't have to leave the front door of our house, and we can learn about the outside world just from the internet or from TV. So I want to encourage young kids to go out and experience the old school style of learning. Another one of my passions is cooking. I love cooking, and here's the cool thing about cooking is I never learned how to cook. My parents never taught me, never took a cooking class. It's just my own personal curiosity that drives my passion, right? So anything that you're curious about, just learn, read about it. You know, go on YouTube. YouTube is the best way to learn about anything. You want to learn how to sear scallops, cook a steak, just go on YouTube. Then after that, it's all about repetition. If you want to get good at anything, it's about repetition. And of course, I have a deep passion for entrepreneurship and technology. So I like talking to youth about this. I like to share my work experiences with them. This happened to me a few years ago where I tore my Achilles. So you should not give up on something. You have to fail a lot in order to get better at something. So you guys know the story about burning the ships? So Cortez, when they were exploring around the world, the Spaniards, they didn't want the people on the ship, the soldiers, that when they got to a land to go explore it, to go back home. So they burned the ships so that, okay, you can't go home now. We have to stay on this land. We have to explore it. We have to conquer it. And that's how you have to think about it. There's no going back. Once you commit to something, you have to keep moving forward with it. So for me, when I tore my Achilles, I actually had to go to a hospital. I had to get surgery to reattach my Achilles. And then I had to wear a cast, and I had to wear a special boot, and I had to go through rehabilitation. And for me as a runner, the worst thing that can happen is tear your Achilles. If you break your leg, you'll heal faster than if you tear your Achilles. But I was so committed to getting back to where it was before that I went through all this training and rehabilitation. And if you really want to do something, you'll find a way to do it no matter what. And if you don't want to do something, all the excuses will just keep coming out as to why you couldn't do it. So, you know, we as human beings, we very naturally want to live in our comfort zone. Why do we like that? It's because it's predictable, it's safe, it's routine, it's about being conservative. But if you live in this every day, you will never get good at anything, right? Our world today, all of the business leaders out there, all of the successes that our planet has had is because people are pushing their limits. If you think about all the Olympic athletes, why do they win the gold medal? Is because they just keep pushing themselves. How do these business leaders create the Facebooks and the, all these big companies out there? Is because they are tireless, right? They do whatever it needs to do. They sleep less, they work more, and it's all about pushing yourself, right? The world was not created on average people. The world was created on leaders, business leaders, athletes, historians, people that want to push the boundaries of their knowledge in the domain that they work in. Get comfortable with uncomfortable. Everything you do in life is going to be hard. If anything was easy, everybody would be doing it. No one gets credit for doing something easy. Everybody gets credit for doing something that's challenging, that's hard. And people ask me, well, how do you train for these types of things, especially living in Hong Kong? Well, all throughout history, mankind has trained for everything that it's part of our DNA to compete. It's what we're born with, competition, survival of the fittest, right? Darwin's theory. It's all about that. So life begins at the end of your comfort zone. Don't wait for the right opportunity because a lot of times you won't be 100% ready for anything, but you just have to keep moving. You just have to keep moving forward. Be relevant. You have to be present. So you can be present but not listening. So you have to be present and have passion. That's very important. Thank you.